This is going to be different from the other things that we've done together in that it won't be trying to help other chapters by sharing perspectives and get that kind of groupie thing going, but we will all benefit from knowing more personal stuff. That is, that I want this discussion to be about what you feel about the Awesome Foundation and politics, not how you as a representative of the chapter might want things to be. That can come into the conversation, but that's not the basis of my starting questions. So it's easy to go into worthy versus playful, which is the terminology that I like to use rather than orphans and flamethrowers, because when you're talking politics and moral values and that sort of thing, worthy comes up a lot. But I don't want this to be a discussion of the benefits of those two, the one versus the other. So what do I want? I want to introduce the idea of politics as, I put this list up here, pardon the typo, I didn't have spell check on that poster. So I have politics divided into these four things: public policy, factionalism, and electoral politics. Often, that's what we often mean when we say politics in the negative sense. That is, in the scary sense or in the intense sense or whatever it might be. Because it is hard, really hard, to deal with politics. When I was in South Africa, I was told I was a good politician and I took offense. And they said, no, in South Africa, a politician means a person who stands up for the people and who speaks about the people's needs. It's a positive, it's not like you Americans. And so I'm saying politics in all four senses, and is this a reasonable way to break down politics into different categories? But I want to know personally, like, aside from the exasperation of leaving out social justice and using that as politics, using all four of them, which aspects of, I've got two questions I'm going to pose. Which aspects of politics are part of awesome for you? And you might want to use this system or come up with a different terminological system. The other thing is, I was thinking about what's the real thing we're getting at here? What's the extreme version of the question about politics? And the word revolution came out of that. So I just thought, okay, whatever revolution means for you, if you saw a great proposal that you thought could potentially start a revolution, I'm saying chaotic but non-violent, in other words, complex but not a violent revolution, would you want to support it? And so those are the two questions that I want to bring forth for discussion. If you have other things, great, but that's a place I wanted to start from the perspective of for you.
I think about this a lot, actually. Partly because I live in Washington, D.C., and partly because I just think about these things a lot. I approach my music career with a lot of these thoughts. I personally view my work with the Awesome Foundation as filling in some of the gaps in public policy in the city, and I think we are all doing that, whether we intend to or not. And specifically in DC, we have a gun violence problem, and we also have a really strange scenario with returning citizens who have gone through the city penal system. There's no jail, there's no prison in Washington, D.C. If you go to prison through the city legal system, you go to Montana. And you're in Montana for the duration of however long you're there, and then they fly you back to D.C. when you're done.
This is the federal system.
This is the city of Washington, D.C. If you go to prison through a crime that the city of Washington, D.C. convicted you of, for whatever, you go to Montana.
But is it a federal offense?
No, it's a city offense.
Okay.
Yes.
Just contracted with Montana for some reason.
Private prison system. So that's the thing that we just deal with in the community all the time, and that we get a fair number of grants around that, and it's I see that in my neighborhood, I see that in my community. community, and that's something that I need to address. I get to address, you know. Social justice is another one. Like I shared on Friday, like when I took over leadership of the chapter, it was kind of explicitly to get it through COVID. We had, I remember one of our early online meetings when we switched happened as they were using the helicopter to intimidate the protesters in DC. We were actively having a meeting while that was happening, and we had to end it because people had to go like report on it. It was a job. They're like, I gotta go. And that's been a part of my approach to this as well this entire time. Is making my city a better place, and that's social justice.
I know that social justice is a big part of the Awesome Foundation. That's clear. But I want to know what the comfort zone is for those other three, and especially for extremely potent stuff.
How about anti-factionalism? Does that work? Can you talk about that? There's an effort locally called the Center for Pledge, which has 5 things that people sign up for that we will, I don't know exactly, but treat every human being with dignity and respect, especially if we disagree with them. We will stand up and oppose anytime someone is being attacked or denigrated. We will learn about racism and bias and what else? Something like that. So, and about 8,000 people, individuals have signed it, and now they're going to organizations and corporations. There's hundreds that have done that. And I brought that to the Awesome Foundation. Should we sign up? And one of our trustees was like, that sounds political. And it's not political. It's my response. It's a human thing, but we didn't do it. So I don't know. Just toss that out.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we were discussing sort of the pre-summit email about travel, like one of the things that I was thinking a lot about was values. Like I think to me the place where I think the lens through which I look at this for the Awesome Foundation is like, what are values that we want to uphold? And sometimes those values overlap with things like electoral politics or factionalism. Like we live in a moment where if you say, hate is more powerful than love, that's perceived as an electoral statement against a certain party, but that's a statement of value. And sort of, or I see that first and primarily as a statement of value, and I think that's sort of the lens through which I would love to see the Awesome Foundation approach it, and then we can say sometimes, okay, we're going to do this because these are our values, and that if that isn't ancillarily a political thing, that's not going to stop us, because it's first and foremost a values question.
I've been very surprised. We really haven't gotten any political allocations at all. So I thought it was cool you guys had like some kind of ICE-related one. And I've been surprised too. Like, why aren't we getting things like that? I don't know if it's our image in the community or if Pittsburgh's just not reacting in that way. We've had protests, but so we haven't had to discuss it as a chapter. I personally would love to fund that sort of stuff, but we haven't gotten it, so I don't know how the rest of the group feels.
Maybe it is a brain neutral. The one I did think of is slightly different was the huggable, lovable uterus. That we actually had a debate about, like people were like, well, that could be kind of divisive. I remember getting super angry going, it's a huggable, lovable uterus? Like, what's divisive about?
I think that was what, like post the overturning Roe, but pre-Trump.
Yeah, so it was
We weren't
one
quiet.
we did debate. Like there were some people that were like, is that really, like, should we be taking a stand? Or I don't remember what the exact argument. We funded it. I think we overwhelmingly voted for it, but it came up as a question, like, is that our role to, like, are we advocating somehow by
one of the things that happens, I'm sure, especially in situations where there's someone like in your chapter who's willing to say, wait, that's political, that's negative, is code words. People, I don't think that they were using the words literally when they objected to that, right? It was code words. And, all of this has to do with comfort zones and whether people can approach things directly. And I really am interested, maybe even a go around, to hear what your personal reaction is to that third question. If you saw a grant proposal you thought could potentially start a revolution, would you want to support it? Is that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Why I voted for these? I open it have
The uteruses take over.
Is there anybody who has any other hesitation or thing other than, of course?
I mean, I think it's a broad question.
Yeah.
I think you're describing something that's a little bigger than I think how folks are interpreting it. Yeah.
Wait,
The difficult part of it is the nonviolent. And for me, nonviolent also is not necessarily just physical, but also vocal and language. So,
But define it how you like. Is there a version of potentially could start a revolution?
so that's what I want to get to is, like this Saturday, I'll be part of the No Kings thing. But it's frustrating to me, and I posted about this, that for me, protesters that are demonstrating hate in language or gestures or throwing things, that I'm not interested in. I firmly believe that we can have a revolution that's peaceful. So, yes.
But would you be happy for the awesome time? Would you push
Yes,
like that's
if it would be
something
nonviolence.
Yeah.
For me, it's interesting that I said that. For me, coming out of the election, I decided to open my office space because in my head, I was just going, joy is a revolution, joy is a revolution, joy is a revolution. And we've just got to create moments of joy, right? Because that to me is the only hope that we have left to kind of keep people's spirits up and keep people connecting. And so I think if we kind of remind our awesome foundations that that's our little part that the awesome foundation is doing is keeping hope alive and really creating moments of joy. And as long as we could be joyful, we are part of a nonviolent revolution, right? That just reminds us that what we're doing is that important and puts that context in place. And we're doing a little bit that's our part.
Thank you for saying that. I was hoping somebody would bring that up because that's our strategy in San Francisco.
That's what I'm doing in my space. I can't just talk, fight the hate online. I have to try to just get people into our space, find joy, and just do that piece. Whatever happens next happens.
We have 20 million people participating in No King Days protests across our country. Statistics are that our regime will fall. And we've been building to 7 million was the last one. Hopefully 9 this one.
Yeah, without knowing everybody's politics in here, just listening to the conversation, I get a picture. Do you think that a group that puts money into a central pot and then gives it to organizations that they deem worthwhile attracts a certain kind of political person? In other words, are we self-selecting by the act of what we do? Do certain types of people with certain types of values become trustees?
I don't think the act is unique to certain political. I mean, there are cultural and church groups that have been doing giving circle kind of activities for a long time. But I think we have a sort of path that we're on. There's a path dependency in who we started from and who we've become that is certainly, at least in the US, in a kind of political space. The Awesome Foundation comes out of a group of MIT grads or Harvard grads. So this already set a tone.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
From Massachusetts, who were in Massachusetts, like.
I think we're pretty politically homogenous as a group. At least our chapter certainly is. And these summit homogenous.
Yes.
And these summit gatherings certainly suggest that as well. We certainly, our chapter, I feel confident saying that both in the 10 years I've been involved, and I feel confident saying before I was ever involved, we've never had even a centrist, let alone right of center.
I do not think that that's true across all chapters.
No, and so like at the last summit, I
Yeah.
had some very interesting conversations with Republicans.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, Republicans who were hesitant about how they were going to vote in the upcoming election, but still.
Were they from the Westminster chapter?
Yes.
Because that was my experience too. I remember there being a little bit of a collective gasp when word got out that some of them were Republicans.
But I think it's a good question. To go back to values, I think it's probably something where we all share a set of values, and in this political context of the 2020s, that tends to lead us in a particular political direction, more so than it is we start with the political, like being politically homogenous, and then sort of that's the end of it.
I think it's the no strings thing, that the fact
Yes.
that it's not controlling people who, it happens to be that people with a personality that's more controlling tend to be more right-wing on the political spectrum. And so the no strings attached definitely has that filter to it.
I think it's even more I think it's much more of a self-selecting prophecy than that. Like if you go to our, the thing is like the no strings thing sort of comes like way down when you learn about the Awesome Foundation. But if you go to the homepage, and you have like, if like the New York chapter just announced their winner of like, the Trans Art Fest, right next to the like, a prom for everyone, right? And these kinds of projects, if you read through that whole thing, and you as an individual who are like, I want to do some collective giving, and you look through this, you're like, these are not the people for me, right? If this is like, if you're like, I don't believe any of those things, and so you're not going to even reach out to say, I want to start an Awesome Foundation. I love the model. I hate what everything you all are funding, but like, I want in on that. Right?
Start the Guns and Swords chapter.
Whatever happens.
You've never rejected a prospective chapter on the basis of anything political. We've sort of ignored outreach from people who seemed that they were doing it for self-serving reasons or who didn't really understand the model, but never have we said, you're the wrong politics for Awesome.
Yeah, I would love, it's a weird thing to say, but I would love to see a chapter start like that and just have them at the summit and have another voice. I'm sure even then they're not going to be, super like hate spewing or something. I think it's going to be much more of a like
Revolution.
I do think that there.
yeah.
Well,
I think maybe more centrist or more libertarian or something. But I think it would be great to hear. Like it's great. I kind of like that there was somebody in Westminster that's like, well, I'm a Republican, and everybody going, I just didn't see that coming.
I think the St. Pete's chapter actually leaned this way. I remember some conversations with them back in the day, and I think this was that kind of.
I think there's an extra layer to this.
Can we wrap up?
Yeah. The political divide in America, at least, is largely population density based, and this idea is something that depends on population density to function.
So it's a determined situation.
You kind of just, yeah.
I mean, it does, but it mostly does. But I do think it's interesting. We have seen some great chapters from smaller towns, like
State College.
yeah, like State College or like Westminster
They're usually
or
college towns, though.
True. Westminster is a college town.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is? Okay, so actually I take it back, you're right. Like there is, the density isn't just urban, but there is a certain, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Withdraw.
Okay, let's do a couple more comments and then wind down. Ellie?
I did have a thought, kind of off of what Emily had said about the branding, because although I can think of a few more like political things that we funded, they've all had that playful element intertwined in it somehow. So it wasn't just, and I don't think we get too many applications that are purely like serious political. A lot of them are combined with, like it's a comedy show or mimes or like some sort of artwork intertwined with it, advertising.
The closest we've had is a straight up support thank you letter or thank you system for poll workers. We did give a grant for that once.
Do you mean the closest you've had to like something political, or
What's that?
the closest you've had to
No, the
what?
closest we've had is something political that didn't have a place for.
Gotcha.
Okay, well, it's interesting to hear some of the biases confirmed and others broken a little bit. I'm really happy we've had this discussion, and I don't impose a ban on this discussion in your chapters.